We broadcast at 6:40.
West of the Rockies, you're on the air. Hello.
Y2K, how can we prepare?
Stop a few of their machines and radios, throw them into darkness for a few hours.
We are fighting for our lives. My family must survive.
For 5 years, 1,000 gallons of gas, air filtration, water filtration.
Coming at you from the frozen tundra that is East Central Alberta, Canada, streaming live on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, Telegram, Rumble, and Odyssey. Welcome back to the workshop where we create community, find freedom, promote preparedness, and share success. I am Toolman Tim. Today is March the 30th, 2023, and this is episode 281 of the Workshop Podcast. How the hell is everyone out there? It's been a great day here. We have had just an incredible week. The weather has been awesome. I gotta love it. And I forgot to mention in my intro, we are live on the Prepper Broadcast Network tonight as well, because it's Thursday evening and it's a live show. Always great to be over there with my fellow prepared brethren and sisterin. Oh dear, that's funny. Anyhow, weather's been great. One more reason that I'm absolutely excited, well, many reasons, but March 30th is one day before March 31st. And if you guys don't know, it's the day I always wait for every winter, because that's the end of my snow removal contracts. Now, I love the money I make from snow removal. Do not get me wrong. But by early to mid-February, it's starting to get old and you're like, all right, it's time to go. 5 months of snow removal. So one more day. We'll see. I don't want to jinx it, but March has been an absolutely quiet snow month for us, which is typically not normal. But anyway, good to see everyone. I see Martinson family in there. Sorry, I see Renegade Butcher was first. And Chris Dixon, good to have you. All right, let's get the announcements out of the way, and then we're going to launch into a brand new series tonight. First off, the Thrivalist Fair. You guys know, or if you haven't heard, I'm going to be speaking at the Thrivalist Fair in Addy, Washington, May 28th and 29th. That is Memorial Day weekend for my Americans and Victoria Day weekend for my Canadians. And I'm going to be speaking, I think 4 times there, twice each day, which is great. And Sunday evening, the 28th of May, we're going to have a workshop get together. We've got one of the fire pits booked there. So I know of at least 3 people coming who are members of the workshop community. And if there's more, great. All the power to us. I'd love to have an in-person meetup and sit around and have some bourbon tasting and a bunch of other things. It'll be a great time. Becky will be with me too. So if any of you guys haven't met her before, she will be there. So it's great. And what's today? Thursday. So in 6 days, 5 days, she'll be back in Canada. 6 days, she'll be home. So I'm ready to see her again. Number 2, it's Thursday. So do not forget that it is our sponsorship day. And that is my brother Joel Riles from Fortress Canine. He has a podcast called the Protection Dog Podcast, which is so much more than just talking about dogs. Joel's an incredible guy who has built an incredible business. He's rose from the ashes. He's come back from some really bad situations, which he's been very open about. And he has built himself a self-reliance lifestyle on the backbone of entrepreneurship, which is one of our pillars of preparedness. So if you're looking for protection dogs, number 1, that's the place to go. But also, if you're just looking for more content, or if you're just tired of listening to me, go over and check out the Fortress Canine, the Protection Dog Podcast. Joel is just an incredible dude. Always appreciate him. And number 3, the Telegram group. We got a little carried away in there today. Hey, there is Cold War Prepper. Good to see you. Letty Lou, Byron Roberts, also good to see all of you. We always get carried away in the Telegram group. But just before we came live, Tori was having some trouble with, I believe it was the release latch on her hood. Someone else had some trouble with a fridge today or a freezer. And what I absolutely love is when I'm out working like crazy, I've been renovating that bathroom at our rental. I pop in, pop out, and I see all the help that everybody's given. So if you're a help giver or if you're in need of some assistance, come by and join. Links in the description. And finally, today's tool. If you saw it this week, I did a short video on the Patrick's Power Card. It is, I don't even know, maybe 2 or 3 credit cards thick. You can stick it to your phone. You can throw it in your car. It gives you 3 to 5 hours of basically standby power for your phone. It's just an absolute emergency item, and it's really cool. So I threw the video up on TikTok, and it just went viral for some reason. When I checked tonight, it had something like 350,000 views, and I picked up another 500 subscribers, which was cool. If that's all that happened, that would have been great. But the Batrix company reached out to me last night, and they said, hey, I'd love to get on a call with you. We just want to thank you for, sharing our product, and we'd like to send you a few and talk to you about a few more things. So tomorrow morning, later on in the morning, I have another call with them. I'm quite excited because I think that's a product that I want to do some more testing on it, but I really like the way that it is right now. So Yozik says, do I work? Well, on occasion, Hey, who else? One Step Closer. Good to have you. Hey, Chuck Peoples. Good to have you. We will. Hey, and Sean Canada. Nice to have you as well. A couple of names I haven't seen in here in a little while. So anyway, that was cool. You know what? This isn't a this week in the workshop situation, but we might as well chat for a minute because schedule is going to be a little messed up this week. We have a live stream tomorrow night, which is going to be great. And it is, so tomorrow night's going to be Amy Dingman from A Farmer's Kind of Life. And she's coming by. We're going to talk about something. We might get a little spicy. We might step on a few toes, but we're going to talk about is the prepper news cycle. And more importantly, how sometimes in the preparedness sphere, we get carried away with a news story. Something drops out and they're like, hey, let's run with this. And, we're all, it's not just in the preparedness field, but it's something we're going to chat about. It's going to be fun. And then if you see Chris Dixon here in the comments, him and I are going to meet up in Red Deer. So this is in-person, real-life community meetups, guys. This is where, the rubber meets the road. But anyway, we're going to meet up. He's bringing his sons. I'm bringing my son. And we are taking a knife-making course. It is going to be awesome. I can't wait. So that's on Sunday. So all that being said, I am, the way it looks, Saturday and Sunday are both going to be pre-recorded. Saturday for sure, and probably Sunday. I have 2 brand new pre-recorded episodes of Rambling from the Road for you guys that are going to be there. So it's in now. If I happen to get home Sunday night, I may end up doing a live stream, but it looks like you're going to have 2 pre-recordeds, which is great. And Chuck, I missed being there too. He said I missed me at Self-Reliance Festival. I would have loved to have been there. With the wife being out of country, it wasn't really an option simply because I just had to be here to hold the fort down. But I was in there in spirit, and I was checking in on social and seeing how you guys were doing. So, hey, Garden Girl, good to have you. And you know what? One more cool thing. So many things have happened, and it's because of your guys' support, and I love it. It's great. But if you guys have seen, I've done a couple of videos in the past on that cat brand Power Cube. I love it. I bought it at Costco. I've had pretty good luck with cat brand stuff, actually. And they reached out to me yesterday as well and said, hey, we manufacture all of the cat auto brand tools. We would like to send you some stuff, no strings attached. The only thing you have to do is when you review them, make sure you're following safety procedures. And I'm like, well, you obviously don't know me. But anyway, no, so they're sending me up a bunch of cat automotive gear that I am really stoked about checking out. A cat booster pack and a rolling battery charger, a couple other things. So anyway, look for some of that gear coming up. I always wanted things to do. This was what I headed into this for. I wanted to be able to help people. I wanted to turn this into a business. And I wanted to be able to, I wanted to get to the point where companies are like, hey, we want to send you some shit so you can test it out, because I love doing it, but it costs a lot of money sometimes. I love my tools, but it is great when the companies have started sending me some stuff. And for the record, so everybody knows where I stand on this, whenever a company reaches out to me and says, hey, Tim, we'd love to send you a product, I have basically a stock email where I send it back to them and I'm like, hey, here's the deal. If you send me something, it is under the understanding that it is an open and honest review that you have no input on. If you're okay with that, send it. If you're not okay with me, saying that it's a piece of shit product, I don't say piece of shit, but if you're not okay with that, don't send it because it will not get reviewed. That's all I can do. So anyway, that is the mini this week in the workshop for you guys, because I probably won't get a chance to do that this week. And I always enjoy it. I love filling you in on what's going on. And I love hearing from you guys about what's going on with you. So this has been, this series it's a brand new series starting tonight. It's going to be like all my other series. I'm going to call it monthly with quotation marks around it because honestly, it could be every 2 months. These Thursday episodes, I'm really trying to put a ton of prep work, research, depending on what they are. So as it fits into the schedule, I will do it. It's just going to be, I remember back when Jack used to have Stephen Harris on all the time. And one of my favorite series was the Bug Out Trailer series. Loved it. But you never knew when it was coming. But every time you got one, it was a great surprise. So that's kind of the way this is going to be, along the lines of our disaster series that we're doing kind of once a month, our empty container series, which the container's getting rapidly empty in that series. And the history of modern preparedness, which is kind of running about every 2 months. So this is another one. Now, this has been a list that I have been tweaking for a couple of years. Not twerking, tweaking, just in case you guys thought you misheard me there. And it's been, so I have something else I'll probably delve into at some point is around 30 rules to live by. And a lot of times what it is things that I have been basing decisions in my life over the years, things that are important to me. And at some point, I just find a way to verbalize them or put them on paper, put them on electronic paper. So I've made a list. Anyway, that's been the same with prepping and preparedness. Over the last couple of years, I called it the pillars of preparedness right away. I don't know why that stuck, just because I like my alliteration. And I started putting them on paper. And then, I think I ended up having something like 15 or 16. And then I realized, oh, you know what? This is basically, this one's an overlap. This one fits together. And after a while, I finally got down to 12. And I was like, okay, 12 is a nice round number, but it really worked. So then, guess what? I love alliteration. I don't know if you happen to notice. And if you haven't noticed, when the opening of the show is create community, find freedom, promote preparedness, and share success. Now, I mentioned that one night, and somebody was like, holy shit, I didn't realize they were all alliteration. So there might be somebody out there who says, wow, I never realized that before. Anyway, so I tried to make a whole list out of F's. And since you guys know that a lot of F words are my favorite words, and I got about 9 that worked. And then I was like, I got about 11 altogether that kind of worked. And I'm like, no, it's too much of a stretch. So then I switched over to B, and it was not to B because I got about 9 of those as well. And then I was just kind of reaching, spent a ton of time going through thesauruses and that sort of thing. And nothing really paid off or worked out the way I wanted it to. So finally I said, hey, let's throw this into the Telegram group. And that's always where the best ideas come from. So I threw it in the Telegram group and I said, hey, this is what I've been working on, the 12 pillars of preparedness. And I said, I'm looking for some B's or some F's. Can you guys help me with this? And of course, Josh, being the renegade that he is, he said, hey, did you happen to notice that the word preparedness has 12 letters in it? And you just happen to have 12 pillars. He said, give me a couple of minutes. And, the savant that he is, he comes back in about 5 minutes with a fairly fleshed out list of 12 pillars, all that line up with PREPAR, that sort of thing for preparedness. And so in the meantime, while he was doing that, I was working on my own list because I thought, hey, this is cool. I managed to get about 5 or 6. So by the time he sent me his list and what I had, I combined them and made, with our powers combined, we came up with a really cool, I think, the best list we could have, because it turns out that all the letters aren't just those, sometimes when you have you remember the 3 R's of learning, reading, writing, and arithmetic. So, they had to cheat for that one. This one, there's no cheats. All 12 of them work really, really well. And I totally have to thank Josh for that, because I have this bad habit of once I get stuck in a mindset, my brain stays there. And now I moved, Josh helped me break out of that. And instead of trying to be illiterate or illiterate, no, we came up with what are we going to call those again? Acronym? Yeah, there we are. All right. So we're going to do a quick overview of the 12, and then we're going to get to P tonight. Josh says he's special. No, he is special in a good way. I need to shout out Josh, and I'm not going to get into specifics here, but Josh took a couple of chances this week and last week, like big chances that didn't have to pay off, but he fucking knocked it out of the park, guys. And you're going to find out some cool things about him, and I'm not going to spoil it, but I'm just got to say that I'm really proud of him for what he did, for what it's worth, Josh. So keep it up, brother. All right, so here we go. And yes, I can spell preparedness. So we're not going to, yeah, we get to P tonight, Yozik. Yes, we do. So P is for plans. Oh my God. I almost started out sounding like I was going to sing you a Sesame Street song, but plans, bug in, bug out plans, document backups, discussing those plans with your family. That's always important. But that's where we're going to start. The plan for this evening is to start with plans, but I want to give you a quick overview of the rest of them. Hey, Arpie, I probably mispronounce that name every time you come on here, but I try my best. I'm going to call you Arp from now on. P for plans, R for radio. Everybody knows what radio stands for. It's short for comms, but so this is all types of communication. Any type of communication from cell phone to leaving a birdhouse on a tree pointed in a certain direction so your family knows where you went, when you went. Anybody catch that Easter egg right there? E. Now, this is one that some people may want to fight about, but if you want to fight about it, this is a hill I'm going to die on. Entrepreneurship. And that does not mean you have to be your full-time boss, your own boss, but it means, what that really means is when it comes down to it, you need to find a way to take control of some of your finances in your own life. What better way to be prepared than to be in control of your own way of making money? It's not something that's talked about. Now, in the greater survival podcast kind of community, yes, entrepreneurship is pushed a bit, which I think is great because there is an utmost importance of it. But in the greater prepping community and family, maybe not as much as I want to. So I'm going to put my money where my mouth is. And this year at Prepper Camp, I'm actually doing 2 presentations, one on preparedness and the other one on entrepreneurship. So that's going to be great. It'll be a rework of the You Can Do It presentation, if you heard it at Living Free in Tennessee last spring. But that's how important I think it is. Next, this one's funny. P for physical. That kind of sucks because yes, it's a P, but it doesn't sound like a P. But it works because as soon as I say physical, you probably get the idea. This is all aspects of health, staying in shape. This is, pushing yourself to keep on ketovore. I'm pointing at myself when I say this, because you feel better, because you look better, because you can move better. It means eating the right stuff because we all know garbage in, garbage out, right? And what do they say? The first rule of survival is not dying. So that also means taking care of your physical body. If you get a cut, having a good first aid supply, having a good supply of medication on hand. One Step Closer says the first rule of Zombieland was cardio. Yeah, I know. But the first rule of Survival Land is don't die because, there's no continues in the game of life. Oh, maybe there is. But anyway, shut up, Tim, moving along. So yeah, and then, a proper shelter to make sure that this goes into security, kind of bleeds over here a little bit, but that you don't succumb to the elements. Looking after your physical self, whether it's, preventative health or reactive health, like through first aid. Next, this one may be the biggest stretch of them all. If I say the word association, what does people think? Yeah. So that would be community. But I like association because what I like about it is it's more than just family and it's more than just where you live. It's the people that you choose to be a community with. And that's what I really like. It's about having neighbors you can trust, but also being a neighbor that you can trust. It's about going up next door and chatting with the old lady that you have lived next to for over 2 years and didn't get to meet and finally did. So that was a big step for me. It's about putting on a preparedness presentation in your local community, Letty Lou. because that's what we do. It's about reaching out. If a tornado goes through or a hurricane or whatever it happens to be, spending time building those relationships ahead of time so that you can be out there and helping people. R is resolve. You can call resolve grit or mental toughness, but I think resolve ties it in really, really well. This is the one, if you guys have known, it's been one of my pet themes or pet projects, pet topics. I don't know. It's the hardest one. You can't give somebody resolve. I don't even think you can teach somebody resolve. A person has to choose to learn resolve. And that is just that not giving upness. I honestly don't think I really learned that skill until I worked in the oil patch. And I'm going to tell you a quick little story here. When I worked on the co-rod rigs, they would handle anywhere between 1/2-inch rod and 1.25-inch rod. And what that was solid steel that was flexible enough that it could be put on a wheel about the size of a merry-go-round. And what we did a lot was we would go down with what honestly was a glorified Chinese finger trap. And you would try to put the teeth or the dies in there enough to get it to bite that broken piece of rod and then pull it to the surface. Now, that was the type of job that could take an hour because you could go right down, fish it, and be done. Or it could be the type of job that could take 2.5 days. And for me, when I first started, and I won't lie about this, it was always, well, we didn't catch it on the first go. Well, let's pack it in and go home. Well, my operator said, that's not an option, Tim. He's like, I know it's -40, and I know we've been out here for 12 hours, but we've got 16 hours we can work on the book, so we're going to go down and make another attempt at it. And I realized after a while, I was like, well, shit, you got one of two options. You either give in or keep going. And it's something I've worked really hard on for a lot of years, and I'm nowhere near perfect. But I think resolve, grit, mental toughness, whatever it is, when you talk to people about how did you survive that crazy, insane, life-threatening situation, and almost every time they say it's because I decided not to lay down and die. So that's why resolve is in there. Energy. This is the one. This is all forms of fuel. Any way you can power the work that you want to work. All the preps in the world, not going to work if you don't have fuel to run them. And perseverance, that's another good one for that as well. Now, when I'm talking about energy, we can talk about stored gas, we can talk about battery banks, we can talk about solar panels, anything and everything. Basically, something that allows you to extend your own capabilities. And, that could be gas for your vehicle. That could be propane to run your barbecue in case the power's out, all kinds of things. But when it comes down to it, that's fuel, that's storage, that's running, that's cycling things out. It's knowing what fuel to store. It's knowing how much to buy, not to buy too much, all of that. So fuel. D for drink. And I slid something in here kind of funny, but when drink comes down to it, that really is talking about fluids or waters. Yeah, water. And, it should go without saying, but it's water for drinking. It's water for making the all-important coffee. It's water for bathing. And it's the water for washing dishes and that sort of thing. And we'll throw in bourbon as well for drinking and trading. Simple as that. But yeah, no, drink. Fluids, water, storage. Almost free for the most part, other than the bourbon, of course. N for nourishment. Besides shelter, first aid, and water, there's nothing that'll kill you quicker than not having proper, actually, I could probably put that, anyway. There's nothing in there. Let's put it this way, back up a little bit. If you don't have water, you're going to dehydrate in 3 days. If you don't have proper shelter, there's a good chance you could die within a day if the weather's bad enough. And if you don't have proper first aid, minutes. If Chuck's still in here, he can tell you how fast. If Chuck's still in here, how fast can you bleed out, or somebody else? I'm sure somebody can know if you hit an artery. So beyond those three, energy for your body, nourishment. So, and that's stored food. That could be, prepackaged store stuff, learning how to can your own. This could be growing your own or foraging your own. It could mean the difference between, eating bad mushrooms and passing away to eating bad mushrooms and just going on a trip, right? But really, when it comes down to it, storing food. The next E is economics, We're going to call that, yeah, Chuck Peoples, 90 seconds. There you go, guys. You can go from 90 seconds to having pressure to having no pressure. Can't take very long to leak. So proper first aid, then shelter, then water, then food. And, hey, speaking of the devil, there she is. Farmer's Kind of Life said, oldest just got severe food poisoning. It was crazy to see how fast he dehydrated. And that's something, it's going to sound foolish, but in the modern, in our modern world, dehydration is not something we necessarily think about because we always seem to have access to fluids, but that is insane how fast you can, without going into too much detail, if it's coming out of both ends, you can get dehydrated really quick. And Chuck says 90 seconds to go unconscious, 3 minutes to be dead. So yeah, if you don't have a tourniquet nearby, you could be in trouble pretty darn quick, because I'm guessing even in those 90 seconds, the last 30, you're probably not very good. So you're going to want to act, and you're going to want to act pretty quick. So economics, these are things like keeping your credit good, or in Becky and I's case, rebuilding some shitty credit that we did our best to absolutely destroy for a lot of years, investing in properties so that you can always have some money coming in, having a well-built or at least starting an emergency fund, silver and gold. I started as a really big fan of silver because it's easily divisible. It's much more practical for purchases, and the barrier to entry is significantly lower. Now, if you want to get into gold eventually, you can, sure, but I love silver. If a person just wants to stick with silver, go for it. But anyway, crypto, if you're into that sort of thing, I know Renegade Butcher hates crypto, and every time I bring it up, he tells me, don't talk about that. It's just a scam. But I had to bring it up because there's no better way to have, encrypted or secure transfer of funds between one freedom-minded feller and another than to use things like Lightning or Bitcoin or any of the other ones. And, Amy says, just learned that it takes 240 pounds of pressure to stop the bleed out of a femoral artery. Yes, sir. And Chuck says, most North Americans are always on the cusp of dehydration. Soda, tea, coffee, energy drinks. Yeah, I believe you. I've heard that. Anyway, I don't. Yep. See, now we got a Bitcoin scammer in here. Some dude named Renegade Butcher telling us all to buy Bitcoin. So, but yes. But yeah, like Chuck says, I've heard that before because that's what we do. We sit around and I drink Diet Pepsi or an old fashioned made out of sugar-free syrup. So there you go. The next S is skills. Now, this is yet another one. Yes, bourbon is very hydrating. Absolutely. And so the first S is skills. And like I said, all the tactical shit in the world ain't going to do you any good if you don't have the skills to use it. Like we've heard many times. But if you have a gun, you don't know how to fire it, I guess you could beat somebody over the head with it. But, and the other cool thing about skills is practice is free. It just costs. So, okay, I don't want to say it's free. It doesn't cost you any money. It just costs you time. But it's an investment that will return in dividends down the road. Chuck says knowledge and skills. Absolutely. And I think a skill is just an applied knowledge. You start out by learning it out of a book or by watching somebody or, some cool dude on, YouTube or TikTok that tells you about something. And then you're like, hey, I'm going to go and check it out. So yes, and the next S is for S for schwackum. I mean security, which is pretty close there. And Chuck says never stop training. Absolutely. So yes, as Chris Dixon says, S is for schwackum, or we'll say security. Having a property that is easily defended, having firearms and ammo, knowing how to use them, how to defend yourself. I was talking to Becky today, and she said she was going to get some pictures. They were at Windsor Castle. And she saw what you would call, I guess, what we would say maybe like SWAT police or something along those lines, like really decked out tactical guys there, which surprised her because in theory, we've always heard that English police or British police don't carry guns. Well, these guys did. She didn't get any pictures, but she did say the magazines were curved, which led me to believe possibly they're using an AK-47. I don't know. Now, I find out. I know in Europe they're a little more popular, but anyway, just interesting. But the thing is, the British can't carry guns. They can barely carry knives. So, anyway, we'll leave it at that, right? But knowing how to defend yourself, properly secured valuables. I was thinking back, I think it's been almost 2 years. It's been a solid year anyway, since I had Tactical Redneck on. And he did a great episode on tactically assessing your property. So knowing how to defend it, knowing where to put your security cameras, knowing where to put the thorny rose bushes, all of that, right? RPA says, carrying a gun does not make you a gunfighter, just like carrying a paintbrush does not make you Bob Ross. And you're right, because in order to be Bob Ross, you'd have to have the most glorious afro on a white dude I've ever seen in my life. But yes, you're right. I'm being facetious, but Chris Dixon says, British police say stop it, or I'll yell stop again. Absolutely. Yes. So Sean, this is a good one. Situational awareness. And I would say I would lump that in. I think security would be the place to put it for sure. That is kind of situational awareness is kind of the flip side to grit. It's kind of like always having your brain switched on just a little bit. And it's a tough one, but that's been the other area that I've really focused on the last couple of years. One Step Closer says in Honduras, legally getting firearms is a huge pain in the butt, but all the cops carry automatic rifles everywhere. Sure. Absolutely. That does not surprise me. And you guys know where I live. The report came out today from the mass shooting in Nova Scotia, and you'll never guess what the recommendations were. Anybody want to guess? You can throw them out in the comments and I'll move along. So Letty says, make your home difficult to access. We're adding thorny bushes to the front to block the windows. It's a great idea. And Letty Lou says she's doing a 60-day situational awareness challenge, starts on Sunday. Well, Letty, please you're always in anyway, but please fill us in on how this goes, because I would love to, I'd love to try something like that. I went back to reread the situational awareness book that I had earlier this year. And what I found was I'd read it once. And so my brain kept shutting off. So that's not very situationally aware. But anyway, I'm going to go back and re-listen to it again. So that is preparedness, Preparedness. I think I spelled that right. And yep, Nate, you're right. Real answer is more guns or more people who know how to use the guns they already have. Absolutely. So tonight we're going to focus on P. You know how it is. Yep. Chris Dixon, you could almost guess it. So I'm sure that, So create more stringent mental health awareness programs. Yep. Those were the two. So the recommendations, I read it just before I went live. Create more stringent mental health awareness programs and to tighten up gun regulations, because the guy used illegally acquired firearms from the United States. So by restricting firearms to Canadian citizens, that will help prevent future situations just like this. End of rant. Move along. All right. So P, anyway, it is P for plans. And like I said, bug in, bug out, pace. We're going to talk about pace a little bit tonight, because I don't think I've ever covered that in what I have talked about. Not that I'm an expert on it, but I did take some notes. But yeah, a discussion with your family, when it comes to plans, if you're the only one who knows what the plan is and you are out of action, your whole family is going to suffer for it. And standardizing, that I've talked about in some of my preparedness episodes before, but standardizing on systems. And it is something that I think is really important. So let's slide on into where we are heading. So plans. The first thing that you can do. And now the cool thing about everything I'm going to talk about tonight are just about everything in the planning area is free, which I love. Martinson said M4. Oh, okay. M4 magazines are curved as well, and so are the Enfield bullpup. So I don't know if anybody happens to know whatever the British, all decked out and I want to say tactical, but I guess is it tactical when cops are decked out on it? But anyway, I'd love to know what kind of firearms they use. So yep. And Nate says, how did Border Patrol let him across with a legal gun? Seems like they're the ones to blame. Yeah, don't point fingers, Nate. It never works. All right. So the first thing, and this is something that I had to go back through my file a while ago to check. I couldn't bring it up here, but I did copy and paste it. So the first thing is to make a list of the most common disasters in your area. Now, again, this is all free stuff, and it really doesn't take that long. But for me, the 4 most common disasters, and maybe I'm a little off on a couple of them, and you'll see I get more specific in the next line here. But for us, extreme cold. That is a big one. Bugging in, of course. Also knowing where your warming stations are. For us, it's the local fire department or the local hospital. Now, something that is really good to know is when the power's out, take a drive around your town and look around and say, oh, this place has power, that place has power. Just good to know in case you have a massive generator failure and you have somewhere that you need to go. Extreme cold. A train derailment. Now, this has been something I've kind of vaguely prepped for a while, because we have train tracks that go right through our town, basically like every other prairie town. And, a lot of them are grain trucks, but a lot of them are petroleum-based trains as well. And some of them have some pretty nasty stuff. And then you add either an explosion or a fire on top of it, and your best option would be to get out of town, and to get out of town quick. Wildfires. Now, I've talked to the local emergency management people here, and they seem to think that it would never really be that big of an issue in our town. It's something that has come through Alberta before. If things get dry enough, I still think it could be an issue. It's something that doesn't take a lot of work to prep for. The planning is basically the same as everything else. Or the other ones. And heavy winds. And again, heavy winds, we don't typically... Now, okay, slide back a little, Tim. We do have some tornadoes in Alberta. They don't tend to be the deadly kind, but they do tend to be the damaging kind on occasion. But what's more common are plow winds. And Chris Dixon, if you're in here, you can correct me. I believe they're on the leading edge of what could be a tornado. They're basically, they just come out of nowhere. 2 summers ago, I took my girls to swimming lessons, and I maybe was gone 10 minutes. I had a bunch of foam out that I was putting vinyl siding. And by the time I came back, it was all over my yard. We had tree limbs down all across town, kind of 4 to 6 inch in diameter. So it comes up. I mean, it was sunny and beautiful to the point where I dropped my girls off at the pool thinking everything is going to be fine. And before I got home, and if it's like 2 blocks, I had to turn around and go get my girls. So that's when things come up like that. Yeah, Chris Dixon says, you get a massive grass fire and that's some fast destruction. You add some wind behind that and you want to get out of Dodge really quick. Now, it's going to pass through fast. Maybe it can, maybe it'll burn the houses. Who knows what can happen. Now, a few years ago, we had a massive fire up in Fort McMurray. Now, that was a forest fire because they have trees up there, but grass fires can get out of control really quick. The farmers around here have silage pits, and that's basically green grain that they stock and they let ferment. They can start a fire from getting so hot. Or when the farmers are out disking the fields, if their discs, when they're breaking up the soil, hit a rock and it sparks and hits the dry grass. We were going across Terminal Road last summer, and Terminal Road in my town is where a ton of oil is stored. And we're only talking maybe 2-3 miles from that. There was a big fire in the road, and they had tractors and a bunch of things in there breaking it up so that it wouldn't get over that way. Chris says plow winds and microbursts, low-level bursts of 100-mile plus. Yeah, it's insane, right? So, yeah, things to, I don't want to say worry about, but things to consider. Now, I just picked up one scenario. It's 2 scenarios combined into one here that is something Becky and I have talked about quite a bit. And the 2 of them are the 2 that combine because they're basically the same. One would be a local train derailment, and that's going to be bad enough depending on, know which way your prevailing winds are blowing. But in our area, train derailment could be bad. What could be worse would be a fire in the Hardisty tank farm. Now, Hardisty is about 40 minutes directly west of my place. And it is the largest oil storage facility in Canada. And hey, Spags Unfiltered, good to have you. Great to have you. I'm going to be in Kansas in a few months hanging out with this gentleman. It's going to be great. Ronald says, just look at California, natural matchstick, millions of acres already burnt. Absolutely. So, yeah. Okay, so the two, we're going to call this one event, but the two that we've prepped for is a train derailment in town or a big fire at the Hardesty tank farm, which, like I said, is 40 minutes straight west of us. Now, when we first moved here, we were living within 10 minutes of the Hardesty tank farm, and there was a huge fire there. Now, they got it under control. We were in town here, so we were still 40 minutes away, but I've always thought about it ever since. So in our area, the prevailing winds roughly are west to east. You know, they're a little bit more southwest to northeast, something like that. But you need to know that if something nasty is west of you, there's a good chance it's all going to be blowing toward you. And if something's nasty east of you, in the majority of occasions, it's going to be blowing away from you. So for us, in most instances, evacuation is going to be straight south or roughly straight south. So we have 4 locations that we picked ahead of time. The first one is Medicine Hat. That's location A. And the reason that is, it's still basically straight-ish south of me, 325 kilometers. In freedom units, divide it by 1.6, and that'll give it to you. I didn't write down miles for you tonight. So, so that's location A. If for some reason we can't go that way, then we're going to go to Swift Current, which is in Saskatchewan, and that's southeast. So you're going south, but you're also trying to get in front of whatever the bad situation is. Now, letter C, is Lethbridge, and that is 460 kilometers, but it's southwest. So it still takes you south, but a little bit back toward what might be coming. So those are the 3 that are south. Now, if something is south cutting us off, we have a D location, and that's to go straight north. Now, I hate going straight north too far in Alberta because eventually you run into Santa Claus and his reindeer. And that is the biggest problem that happened in Fort McMurray. When the fire went through there is only one highway out of that city, and that is straight south. And people had to drive right through the fucking fires to get out of there because you couldn't go any further north. So that is the downside in Alberta of going too far north. Letty Lou says, ammonia leak is a big concern for me, or some other chemical spill from Jenny O. Absolutely. And that's the thing. And so here's the other thing, guys. I'm not a doom and gloom sayer. Like, I don't sit around all day and think, oh, was that an explosion? No, I give this some thought. 4 years ago, I put it in a notepad. We chat about it once in a while, my wife and I, but all it is a plan in case something bad happens. Now, guess where we're going to meet? I want to let you know something. All 3 of those locations have a Walmart. So we've set it up that if my kids are coming from a different direction or me and my wife have to meet separately, we're always going to meet in the Walmart parking lot. It's just simple, easy, and it builds in redundancies, right? So Letty Lou says Tim's going to become an elf running the tool shop for Santa. Absolutely. So those are, in this instance, that's our 4 routes to get out of town. The 4th one is straight north, and I hate that. So anything that you build, any plan, any evacuation route is going to hopefully find Chris Dixon says Walmart because we don't have Waffle House. Yes. If I'm evacuating south to friggin' Waffle House, baby, I ain't coming back. We're going to Tennessee and staying. So PACE, primary, alternate, contingency, emergency. And for us, primary would be, I'm going to slide back up a little bit. Primary would be straight south to Swift Current. Alternate would be a little bit further, but it would be southeast. And that will take us to, Medicine Hat is primary. Swift Current is alternate. Then Lethbridge is contingency. All 3 of those are pretty damn good options. And then emergency is like, shit, I can't go anywhere else. What am I going to do? Well, we need to stay alive, and the only way we can go is straight north. So that, I mean, I'm being a little facetious. There's probably other options, but in this instance, that's the 4. So when you treat any of these plans, hey, Trout's Adventure, good to have you in here. Pace is always an important thing. Okay, next, make a list of the most common personal disasters that could befall your family. Befall, that sounds like that's a 10-cent word, isn't it? Anyway, but these again are something, honestly, These are the things that are a hell of a lot more likely to happen to you or one of your loved ones than a massive fire at the Hardesty tank farm or a train derailment in my town. Now, can those happen? Absolutely. I used to say unlikely things like a worldwide pandemic. Can't use that line anymore. But for us, things like, well, loss of a job. Now you can build in redundancy by, entrepreneurship, right? Multiple entrepreneurial ventures. Number 2, a house fire. That would be horrible. A house fire would be awful. But that is a more likely occurrence than something large happening to an entire populace. Health issues, any one of those. So again, when we talk about looking after our physical well-being, that will help offset some of the possible health issues. But those are personal disasters. Those are the type of things that we plan for. Put it on paper and think, because again, it sucks to even have to consider these. And a lot of times we don't like to talk about them, but it is something worth looking at. Spag says redundancy is needed for good preparation all day, every day, brother. Great. And Letty Lou says they had chemical issues on Halloween. My block wasn't part of the evacuation zone. I'm 2 blocks away. Evacuation was 1 block around the plant. That was friggin' Michael Myers up to no good again. Guaranteed. Halloween, that'll be the next one. Halloween, chemical spill. They're running out of good ideas. So anyway, number 3, make a list of all the items that you might need for these disasters. And this is just simple, but these are the type of things that you'll either want to have on hand at home if you have to bug in or on the road. What are some specific items that you would need for each prepping situation? For us, a filtration mask that'll handle chemicals and nasty shit is pretty important for a train derailment, for a fire at the Hardesty tank farm, for a wildfire, any one of those. So having one of those covers a whole bunch of scenarios. Having a bit of an emergency stockpile. I've got 5 days of all of our medicine in a bag down in the bottom of our truck. I'm going to talk about that a little bit more, but that kind of stuff. So planning for personal emergencies and knowing what to have. We have a clean pair of underwear and a clean pair of socks. I guess it'd be weird if I had dirty underwear and dirty socks in the truck, but we have a clean pair of gitch and a clean pair of socks in our vehicle, right? And Barrett Bishop says there's my brother-in-law, going to need to get a bigger truck. Someday, maybe, it's always good to have. But so tangent right quick. I was cleaning my truck the other day and I found yet another storage compartment that I had no clue existed. So in the Ram 1500, mine is a 2020, 2021. I can't remember what year it is. So in the front, it has bench seats if you flip up the middle console. The middle console has storage in it. You flip that up and then it's a seat as well. Turns out that the seat where you put your ass in the middle console also has a ton of storage in there. Big enough that I could put that big ass spiral bound Atlas that I have, that and a bunch of other things. So always look around, right? And Letty Lou says she needs to listen again tomorrow with your pen and notebook. Yes. Hey, I try to make it worth the price of admission, right, folks? So next, we got that. A list of all of the personal items that we'll need for emergencies. Number 4, make a special list before you take long distance trips. So here's the thing. This is something that Becky and I went through before she left. Simple little things like backing up all of the passports. So before everybody left, I had Becky get all the women together and they took pictures of the inside, outside, and all the pages of their passports. We uploaded them all, password protected, on a Google Drive. So it's all there. So if shit hits the fan or somebody holds them up and steals all their passports, they have a digital copy of their passport that they can go to the local Canadian embassy and get expedited passports. It's way easier if you have a digital copy. Now, the next thing I did was I found the Canadian embassy in both in both London and Paris. I took screenshots and I put them on my wife's phone and we put them in that same Google Drive. That kind of stuff. That's the thing. Now, doing a walk around to your vehicle to make sure there's not a homeless dude laying underneath there before you take a long trip, that kind of stuff. But making lists. And Letty Lou says people don't make those lists on the regular. Probably not. I think a lot of people just don't give a shit. They just hop in the vehicle and expect, well, I'll make it there. My dad always brought me up to do that. And yes, Chris Dixon, totally. I'm this is the second time I'm going to mention Stephen Harris tonight, but here's the thing. Also, and I mention it further down, I do mention, so if you got a whole bunch of questions here all at once. So he says, I remember Jack's Get Out book and thumb drive. Yes. Also have a backup on a thumb drive. The thing is, if somebody holds you up and steals all your shit, well, your thumb drive might go. Now, I don't love the idea of putting a lot of stuff on Google Drive, but I like the idea of security through obscurity. And that was a term that Stephen Harris, that's the first place I ever heard it. And he always said, could somebody steal all your stuff? Sure. The thing is, most times they're not going to be looking for your stuff. Now, password protect it, do your best, use a thumbprint or a retinal scan or whatever, but you're always taking chances with that, right? Now, Ronald Cole says, do they accept digital copies? Not really. You can't get on a plane with a digital copy of a passport, but if you lose your passport or if it was stolen and you show up at the embassy and you have digital copies of it, it will make it a little bit quicker to prove who you are, that sort of thing. And Chris Dixon says, if you're saving documents, use scanned documents in your camera. It should save it as a PDF. Yes, I use it's called Genius Scan, and it's a great little app. It is so quick and so fast. You just sit here, and whenever I have to scan documents, you throw a page down, and it automatically snaps it. It turns it into a black and white everything. It's a beautiful program. It's called Genius Scan. So I've used that since my oil patch days. But yeah, absolutely. Okay. Know things. Now, certain contingencies also. Make sure your roadside assistance is up to date. Do a quick little plan and say, hey, honey, do you know where my roadside assistance cards are? Do you know what number I call? That kind of stuff. Have an extra credit card in your wallet when you travel. Again, this is something I'm going to have Becky on to do a show about this afterwards. But when you travel, I know people hate credit cards, but have multiple credit cards with you, because we only dealt with it once so far, but one of Becky's credit cards got shut off while she was over there when she went to use it. And so I had to call from here because she couldn't call them from England and a whole bunch. Anyway, so know what that is. Know your embassies are. Here's something a lot of people don't do. Look at the damn weather before you leave the house. How many people hop in the car and they're like, oh, I'm going to go for a drive, and they don't know what the friggin' weather's going to be? Hopefully Nate and Aaron don't deal with this tomorrow, but could you imagine somebody be like, I'm just going to go for milk, and you get caught out in a nasty storm, right? Yes, Chuck Peoples. I don't know if I included that, but carry cash. Yes. Have emergency cash stored somewhere. That saved my ass last summer when I was in Calgary with mom and dad, and Rogers had that massive telecom outage across the whole country, and you couldn't use most credit cards or debit cards. Having cash was a lifesaver. Renegade says you can save them to a password locked file and email it to a secure email address like Proton. That is a great tip. That is a good enough tip that I'm going to take a screenshot of that while we're talking, and I'm going to share that later on. So there we go, guys. That's a good one. I like that a lot. Next, put together a good bug out bag. And this is planning for anything or everything. Ronald Cole says, do they make traveler's checks anymore? I don't believe so. And if they do, I think they're the type of thing that a lot of places would be like, what the hell is that? I remember, I haven't worked at Home Hardware in 10 years. I started there in, 2005 and ended up around 2015. I only saw one traveler's check. And we lived in a very strong tourism town. So I don't know. I don't think they're much of a thing anymore. And Nate says the fucking kids I work with never look at the weather. I look the night before to make sure we aren't getting snow. If they're calling snow, I leave 2 hours early for my hour drive. Yeah, I know. Common sense ain't so common anymore, is it? What do we got here? Chuck says, if you travel international, U.S. embassies have emergency assistance to U.S. citizens if stranded or need money. Know where embassies are. All day, every day. Becky and I went on the embassy websites before she left to go to England, and we looked at what they offer. And yeah, there's a lot of assistance. Like if a family member passes away, they help you get the body back. If there is civil unrest, they will help in evacuating all members or all citizens of the country. There's a bunch of things, but that's what they're there for. They're there to help you. They're there to point you in the right direction. That kind of stuff. So yes, absolutely. Put together a good bug out bag. We have two right at the moment. We have what I call the bare minimum bag, and I only check on it once a year. And it's basically a tiny little bag that has, like I said, underwear, prescriptions, I think a really tiny cell phone battery pack. And it's all, we put it in one of those reusable shopping bags. Then we put it in a bag and then put tape around it so that it made it as small as possible, because it's really the holy shit, we got to get out of Dodge. And that's all we have. So that's what we start with. And then we have what we call our grab and go bag. And Becky took that with her to England, but it's the pink and brown polka dot bag that we have that basically has everything in there so that we could survive on the road for a week or two. It's got all our toiletries. We have a few of our prescriptions in there, but we throw our full bottles on our way out. This is the type of thing, if we're going to a hotel, we take. If, say, Becky's having surgery and I need to sleep in the city for a couple of days, we'll take that bag with that kind of stuff, right? Simple, but again, planning, right? Look it over a couple of times a year, guys. This is the type of thing that it's just like a pantry. If you just fill it up and then forget about it, eventually all you have left is 3 cans of corn from 1997 and, 4 cans of low sodium chicken and lentil soup. Like, that's all you have, right? And you're like, well, what happened? I used to be stocked up. And it's the same. You go through a couple times a year, we go through it, and all of a sudden, well, we do have 12 pairs of chopsticks in here. Does anybody know how to use chopsticks? No. But you know what we don't have? We don't have a charged battery bank. We don't have an iPhone charging cable, all of the essentials. So go over it. Do a walkthrough of it once in a while. Put together a blackout bag. Again, this is really just going around your house and saying, hey, there's a flashlight, there's some batteries, there's a headlamp, there's a battery bank, and throw it all in the drawer next to your nightside table. You probably have everything already. And what is one of the most common areas that you need to, or that is most likely to end up happening? A blackout, a power outage. The average power outage, I believe, is, I can't remember, it's 3 or 4 hours right at the moment. So most can be handled with just having a flashlight so you don't stub your toe when you go to take a leak in the middle of the night. Arizona Renaissance Man, good to have you. Nate says, my SOE mini pack is my EDC bag. Gun, ammo, water, food, fire starter, medical, ham radio, take a drink with, spare battery, flashlight, knife, and fork. Absolutely. Chuck says, I always have a full change of clothes, extra rain jacket, and boots in my vehicle, along with a dedicated bug out bag that stays in my vehicle. Exactly. It's simple. Nice stuff. And I know I'm preaching to the choir, but what I love about these episodes is you guys throw ideas at me. And if I throw 15 points at you, and you grab one and you twist it around in your brain to attach it to your life, I've won. We're doing great. Okay. 7, make a maintenance schedule. Again, this is planning. This is so that you aren't like me and you forget to do things. I take care of a 12-unit apartment building. Now, here's the thing that, there's 12 people or 12 families that live in there. And it needs to be vacuumed about every 2 weeks. Traditionally, the previous owners, that's what they did. They said you don't need to go over any more than that unless you're sanding the walkways a lot in the wintertime, because anyway, so I check on it. Now, if I didn't tell myself to do it on the 15th and the 30th of every month, and that's my schedule, I would forget to do it once in a while, because that's just what I do. So for me, making a maintenance schedule makes perfect sense. Every February, I have to pull all the fire extinguishers down from the daycare, all the fire extinguishers from the 12 unit. I have them all in the same time. I also bring in the fire alarm guys to do an inspection at the same time. All of that. Have a maintenance schedule. At the same time, check your smoke detectors. It used to be to do it when the time changed, but they screwed all that up, right? Run your generator every 3 months. That is, other than the 12 cents worth of gas that, you're going to end up using. When I worked at Home Hardware, there was an old man, and if you're worried about 12 cents worth of gas, he used to come in and he would pull right into the warehouse and park right by the double doors to walk into the hardware store. The problem is that's not a parking spot. That's a place where trucks backed in to unload. And one day they called him and they said, you need to move your truck because it's in the way of unloading. And he looked at him straight as can be, and he says, oh my, who will pay for the gas? He was worried about the 1 cent in gas that it would take for him to start his vehicle up and move it from a spot he wasn't supposed to be, right? And yeah. Anyway, it doesn't cost much and it's worth doing. Chuck says, careful keeping med gear long-term in vehicles. With temp swings can dry out some gear, and definitely don't store meds in vehicles if they're kept outside, not garage kept. Good point. Mine are in the unheated, cold garage for my pills, but yeah, I know it's not ideal for sure. Yeah, throw up some stuff there, Chuck, that's really, if you think of it or you have time, any certain items that are really temperature sensitive that we should think about. Next, plan evacuation routes from your area. Now, we talked about that a little bit, but just know, and here's where we throw the family into things too. Talk about it with your family. If you have older kids who are going to be traveling, talk to them and be like, okay, here's where we're going. But ahead of time, make sure that they know these plans. Like for us, know where these places are. And for the most part, we're going to be able to go to our primary location because, unless we're cut off straight south. And if we're cut off straight south, then there's a good chance, unless the wind's blowing south to north, which almost never happens, then we're probably going to be bugging in, right? But the only time we're going to be bugging out is when there's something bad happening to the west of us, right? Or that kind of thing. Ronald Cole says vehicle maintenance is a plus too. Absolutely. I kind of glossed over that, but have a maintenance schedule for your vehicle. Pay attention to it. I know that the next time I get my oil changed, my brother-in-law is going to do it, and we are going to check all the fluids and go through the 60,000-ish kilometer, 70,000 kilometer maintenance schedule. Haven't had to do it in a while, but it's time. That kind of stuff. Like I said, for your area, know where the prevailing winds blow from. That reminds me of an old song. I'm not going to sing it because I will scare you. But anyway, just know which way the winds typically blow. But remember, keep an eye on it because things can change, right? Plan for bugging in for a long time. Again, here's the thing. Remember 3 years ago? Remember the lockdowns where everybody stayed home for a little while? Think about the stuff you'd love to have on hand in case a real pandemic happened. Oh man, if somebody heard that, you know what I mean? But yeah, in case something really viral and deadly ended up spreading around and we had to deal with it, right? Imagine having to bug in for a long period of time. Make a list, check that list periodically, and stock up the things that you're like, hey, I'd like to need. Look at your backup systems, check on your furnace, on your hot water, all of that kind of stuff. And don't forget things like entertainment. One of the biggest sellers during the COVID lockdowns were board games and card games. They're great to have. They pass the time. And if you have to sit down in your cellar for a couple of hours while, the tornado warning passes, well, hey, why not play some Uno or something like that? Chuck says anything wet will dry out, like alcohol wipes, antiseptic wipes, anything gel-based, anything with adhesive. So kind of liquidy things are a bad idea. And up here, I wanted to have wipes in my vehicle that I could, wash my hands with or wipe things up in the car. I used to keep baby wipes in there, but the problem is for about half the year, they would be a baby brick and you could kill somebody with them because they were froze solid. So I ended up picking up some 99%, I think, roughly, alcohol wipes. I keep them sealed and then I have them in a bag. And they've stayed pretty good for about a year. If a female needs to use the washroom, especially number one, don't use them for caring for things down there. Let's put it that way. Becky told me, she said, when I go take a pee, I can't. She tried those. And yeah, anyway, alcohol's great to not freeze, but not so good for the nether regions. Anyway, practice this evacuation at least once. If you are traveling somewhere, for us, if we end up heading straight south, pay attention to the road. Look for landmarks. Now for us, you can watch your dog run away for a couple hours here. And if you're like Clark over in Saskatchewan, you can watch your dog run away for the better part of a day. But practice. When you're traveling that way, just look for landmarks. Know where you're going. One time when we go down that way, look for where the Walmart is. Look for a place in the Walmart parking lot that you could end up needing to stop for a little while, that kind of stuff. But just practice it, and don't just take a truck ride for 7 hours round trip for the sake of doing it, unless you want to, but, incorporate it into an already existing trip. And then when you get back, take an after action report. Like the first time we went camping, I made a whole list when we got home of things it would have been nice to have the next time we went. But after action reports are always important. That's how we learn. Like I said, share these plans with the family. Make hard copies, put them in all the vehicles that people could end up bugging out with. If you have a brother-in-law who lives 10 miles from town, mental note to self, make sure he has something like that as well. Have backups, paper in all your vehicles, all of those things. So if it needs to be a binder, if it needs to be like depending on how many sheets of paper, you could just have a binder page, like kind of like what we used to keep baseball cards in, but it's just a sleeve for an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper. You could put a bunch of them in there. Renegade says a must be nice list. You guys know how much I love must be nice, don't you? Chris Dixon even had to comment on one of my posts earlier today about must be nice. I love it. I that means that everybody is getting it, and I friggin' love it. So next, this one I've talked about a little bit. We're going to take a deep dive, but a surface dive at the same time. Back up all important documents for the family. Now, this is one of those things that in theory or best practice should be done every year. It was something that we hadn't done in 3 years. So we did it on New Year's Eve when we were listening to the workshop radio. Now, this is, again, all of the pertinent things that would be good to have. This is going to be a list, so hang on to your hats here for a minute. But passports, license, health card, prescriptions, pictures of all your family members, including your fur babies. And for me, that's a whole separate USB drive just for the pictures of all my dogs. Credit cards, debit cards, insurance policies, deeds to your properties, diplomas and degrees, combinations to safe, birth certificates, marriage certificates, drug plan cards, social security, vaccination cards, vehicle registration cards. Take a video of your property. Walk around for all of your valuables for insurance. Now, here's the cool thing. The first time we did this, it took hours. The second time we did it, about half of what was in there hadn't changed, so we already had it. We also had a process involved, and it gets a lot easier to do that. Chuck People says, carry a laminated card with the 6 to 7 most important phone numbers with you. Put it in your wallet if you can't access your phone. Here's the other thing. Growing up, I had all my best friends' phone numbers memorized because I had to go to the wall. Now, Clark, if you're out there, buddy, and you're listening to this, we used to have to go to a thing on the wall with a cord to it that we pushed buttons on in order to talk to our friends. Now, nowadays, we don't do that. We just hit a button in our phone and it auto dials everybody, so we don't remember those. So 2 reasons, Chuck. One, so other people can, get you help if you're incapacitated, but also simply because a lot of us don't rely on our memory to memorize phone numbers anymore. So it's a great way to do that. And I was talking to my insurance guy and he said, walk around and take a video of all your valuables. It'll make things easier if you had a fire or theft to prove ownership, because sometimes insurance companies are like, sorry, we're just going to give you the bare minimum. But if you have a video, all the better. Here's the thing. Those backup documents have saved my butt 2 or 3 times a year. Most recently, when we went to the city when we were getting ready to fly, where were we going? I guess it was last year. And I needed to have an up-to-date vaccine or a test, like a positive or negative COVID test. And it was about a 15-minute walk from our parking spot to where I had to go get my nose jabbed with a Q-tip. I show up there, realized I had left my wallet in the truck of all places, had no ID with me. And I was lucky enough that I showed them a couple of picture IDs from my Google Drive, and they were cool with that. Anyway, yes. Chris Dixon says, push buttons. There was a number wheel on ours. Yes. I went into Indigo the other day, which is a big bookstore here. They had a rotary phone, kind of a retro thing. And there was a girl there. She couldn't have been more than 12 or 13 playing with it. And I said, yep, it used to be that painful. And her friend just laughed at me. I'm like, yeah, so true. Renegade says a hardware wallet with some of your Bitcoin could be handy in a pinch. Bitcoin ATMs are getting more common. Yes. Most of the ones in our area are deposit only. I think I'll have to look now that you mentioned that. I had purchased Bitcoin using them a few years ago, but I've never looked to see if you can withdraw, because that would be really handy, Josh. Great. Good suggestion. Josh usually doesn't come up with much that's good, but that one was good. Now, SOPs, standard operating procedures. This is something that a buddy of mine who is, I believe he's going to be at the Addy Washington Festival, Jake from Ravenwood Acres. If you don't follow him, give him a follow, because he puts out some great content. He talked about how he would record how to do things and put them on a private YouTube playlist for his wife for when he was away, because he would be stationed in Korea for quite some time. Love that idea. Just, the things that, you might show somebody, but they might forget after a few months. Things like running your generator every so often, or hooking up your generator if the power goes out. How about relighting the gas hot water tank or the furnace? Because those are the type of things that you could show somebody, and you can show them 2 or 3 times, but there's a good chance by the time they actually need it, they're probably going to forget something. And if they're cold or the power's out or whatever, it would be great to have that on a video so that they could watch it. Again, maybe have backup copies on a USB in case they can't get on the internet, that kind of stuff. But, either have a video or a binder with nice glossy pictures so that people know. But yeah, I just picked up I can't remember the name of the book. It's not Doomsday or something like that. The author was the guy who appeared on Art Bell's Coast to Coast years ago. And it's a great book. It's from 2001, and it has a ton of incredible illustrations in there. And that's what makes it an effective textbook. And that's what you're doing, putting together a textbook for your family. So great idea. Letty Lou says, make sure your crypto wallet is up to date. Took 4 days to update my pirate wallet this week. My old phone is a piece of garbage, but all it has is a pirate wallet on it now. Here's what I did. Remember the other day, I don't know if you guys heard, but my phone just up and died again for no reason. It's been a little buggy since, so I think it's trying to give up the ghost. Well, what I did was I took my old iPhone 10, put a full charge in it, and then just threw it, turned it off, and then threw it in the console in my truck. So now if something happened, I could at least pop the SIM card out, pop it into that one, and have a backup. Something I never thought about before. Chuck People says, laminate a how-to procedure and stash it with each piece of equipment or whatever it is. Yes, I love that. My generator actually has starting instructions both printed on the gas tank and came with a laminated card, which is great for starting the generator, but not so good for getting it hooked up to your house. So yeah, great idea, Chuck. Now here's the thing. Having all that stuff put on video or in books is great if you have to go away, but how about you and your wife both have, say, for instance, you hate to say it, but say you're waiting on your wife to go into labor and all of a sudden you have to rush away to the hospital. Well, guess what? Say you got to call old Uncle Buck to come and look after the house for a while. Well, now you can tell him, hey, check out this private playlist or this book here, and old Uncle Buck will do more than just make giant pancakes. He'll actually be able to, relight the hot water tank when it burns out, right? So that kind of stuff. And finally, standardized systems. This is a bit of planning. This is one of my little, I don't want to call it pet peeves, but it's something that I've kind of hung my hat on as well. And this is a bit in planning, this is a bit in practicing, and a bit of testing things out. But part of having a well-oiled, well-working household, things that are, available to react to bad situations, is having a standardized system. Now, let me talk a little bit. And that's on things like 12 gauge, 556, standard mason jars over wide mouth mason jars, Scepter gas cans. The reason that kind of stuff is so important is it takes the guesswork out of something. So, for instance, we have 2 main gas jugs up here, Scepter and Wedco. Now, say my wife was going to need to pour gas into the generator. And say, for instance, she went to pull the nozzle out and it had broken inside, right? So she needed to grab a different one. Say I had half, Wedco and half Scepter gas tanks. Those nozzles are not interchangeable. She grabbed that, she goes to pour it, all of a sudden she has gas everywhere. I know it's something simple, but to me, standardizing on something eliminates one more point of failure, one more point of confusion that could be a whole lot worse for people. So standardizing on things is part of planning and being ahead of the game just a little bit, because what do they say? You don't rise to the occasion, you fall back to your highest level of training. Well, what's cool about standardizing on things is it takes out it eliminates one more area of training that you don't necessarily have to have. So for me, I'm a big believer in standardizing, and that could be standardizing on a certain type of rechargeable battery, or it could be on, hey, everything in the house runs on double and triple A, so that's what we have. All of that kind of stuff. So anyway, that was a masterclass in planning for preparedness. So that's the first P in preparedness. And like I said, I got to thank Josh for helping me out with that masterpiece of 12 pillars of preparedness. The next one will be R for radio. And of course, that'll be comms. Who knows when that'll be? Probably not until I come back from LFTN, which is going to be great. I've pretty much got all the shows booked up until the end of April, until we head south. I think it's like April 20th or something like that. It's going to be great. Yes. Renegade Butcher says, get the tank hoses for all small propane appliances that use small cylinders. Absolutely. Yes, that is. Yes. And a lot of those are interchangeable. I had one for so I used to have one of those propane heaters that sit on the floor in my garage, and I bought like an extension hose. No, it wasn't for that. I got a backup. Anyway, I don't know what. Oh, yes, for the fire pit. It was for the fire pit in the backyard. It was made to take 1 pound cylinders. So I bought the extension hose to take 20 pound cylinders. And then when I bought the Big Buddy heater, guess what? That exact same hose fit that one. So test it out. You just never know. And yes, standardizing is great. Ronald says we'll be listening to this again. Something I don't mention often enough, guys. Poor Ronald. I think he's had too much to drink. He keeps trying to text and it won't. It's okay. I'm just busting your balls there, Ron. So one of the best things you guys can do to support the workshop and to help it grow, because as you know, I want to turn this into, well, it already is turning it into a viable business, which I love. And I love to teach and train and share and inspire. But one free thing you guys can absolutely do is if there's a certain show that is like, man, that was a kick-ass show, do me a favor and share that around on social media. Be like, hey, this crazy Canucky's worth listening to, because that is the absolute best way to get the workshop gospel out there. And nothing I teach is new. It's all, here's the thing. When I first signed up with the Prepper Broadcast Network, I talked to James, and he's the guy that runs it. And he was worried that he had too many content creators there. And I said, listen, here's the deal. Everybody takes to a certain teacher. So you can have 100 people teaching preparedness, and for whatever reason, those first 99 don't click with somebody, but eventually a person is going to find the teacher or the speaker that they just jive with, and if you look through my YouTube, like my YouTube subscriptions, probably 95% of the YouTubers I watch are middle-aged men, because I guess that's who I am. And these type of people are, the people I learn from, and they're kind of chill, laid back old dudes. Right. And I guess that's what I am, a chilled, laid back old dude. So I learn best from that type. So anyway, share me around, share this shit, share the shit out of it, because I appreciate it. And if you're somebody new listening to the tail end of this because somebody shared it, come and join the workshop, because I appreciate you guys. So this was a great episode. Thank you guys. I did not think it would take as long as it did to get through all the notes. So thanks for hanging around. Tomorrow evening, we have Mrs. Amy Dingman of A Farmer's Kind of Life. She'll be coming on. We're going to have a fun old time. I told her I was bringing the bourbon, but the problem is we can't drink it through the computer monitor, so she'll have to bring some on her end as well. But we'll have a good time. It's going to be a great episode. I'm sure it's going to get a little fiery. I'm even sure we're probably going to step on a few toes, but in love, because I am absolutely guilty of this many times. And we'll talk about a few times where I've been a little bit guilty on it, and hopefully I can do better. We can all do better. Tomorrow night is going to be I forget exactly what I titled it, but we're going to call it the Prepper News Cycle. And I'll give you a quick little taste. Basically what it's going to be is we're going to talk about how a certain news story within our prepper sphere starts and the whole cycle that it follows. Now, it absolutely mirrors what happens in the real world mainstream news as well. So it's nothing new, but it's just something that Amy and I have talked about behind the scenes a few times. And I'm excited to talk about it because it's maybe a topic that we don't always chat about. So that's it. And Saturday and Sunday, I don't believe we will end up having a live. If I get back, we may have an impromptu Sunday evening live, but if not, what can we do about it? But you will have brand new content to you guys both. It will be ramblings from the road on Saturday and Sunday. One's going to be on fear and one's going to be on analog living in a digital world. So, guys, thank you as always. I appreciate you. And as always, stay happy, stay healthy, and have a great week.